more updates. And back to another gameplay video of Green walkthrough by something like that of World War 3. Steam Early Access. I'm the Schwan, and we're playing Warzone again. Let's continue. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I should mention I'll be updating my. I'm not gonna actually adjust the volume of the PC. Adjust the volume on my mic so it doesn't miss recording volume. I think that might happen. I don't know. That used to happen with Dick Story, and I'm paranoid. But anyway, or superstitious about it at this point. But anyway, um, the story. I'm now moving on to Story 3, or Chapter 3 of the book. I'll be updating the Google Drive soon. I'm also working on the character bios finally. I start working on them at Remicade. And in Story 2, as it's now done, I also updated Story 1 a bit. It is a draft after all. And in Story 2, we show what the morning. We start off with the story. We start off the story with showing what a morning is like with the Lucky Charm family. That's our partner name. Me and Lux, our characters. And then going in the base in the morning, a briefing. Something's going down in the Middle East. What else is new? And then later on, and then go to the Middle East, have a negotiation with a bad dude who wants to reform Saudi Arabia back to essentially its modern day state of being a kingdom. Now that's been a democracy after the king decided it was a great idea to join the ECs and kind of, ruin life for everyone in Saudi Arabia. So now they got kicked off a non-democratically elected king, but they're still having issues with the old guard people who liked it back when such thing as royalty existed in their society, not just a bunch of rich people who like to pretend they're royal and stuff like that. Negotiating with this guy. There's also showing off what sports are like in 2040, and even some backstory, even a flashback. So yeah, of World War 3. So yeah, it's really good, and that's not me saying it. That's literally everyone who's read it saying that. Um, but yeah. Although the thing is, I have the best I got in writing text and writing books, the best schooling, training, etc. I got for writing books is English. I learned in school, and in elementary school, middle school, high school, stuff like that. And I know a lot of words, but I don't know fancy words. I don't know how to say in 1,000 different ways. That's my main feeling as a writer, is not knowing a lot of terms used in writing. I know a lot of terms, but I don't know a lot of terms used in writing per se. So yeah. Which I'll be going back to the whole audiobook video thing. Although I'm thinking about not doing it as a strictly audiobook anymore because that's just too taxing for me. I'll have to wait till someone can be a narrator for me. I'll probably read it and commentate on it like a developer's commentary sort of thing. Like read a page and then commentate on that page, read another page, stuff like that. Or just read the entire thing, commentate it. Basically, do it like this. I'm reading something. Oh, come on. Okay. Is no one playing Warzone right now? Berlin Warzone. Let's try this again. But yeah. Oh, which by the way, I need to get in the habit of when I'm doing a repeat series, a couple episodes in, start doing the promos for their story, which probably you can find in the description underneath the line. Halfway down the description, underneath the line, underneath Patreon, is the Google Drive, which you can download their story. Again, I haven't updated it yet. I will. So uh, look for a date better than January 28th. Well, January 27th, let's say, on 2019. But yeah. Like, I really think I have something with their story. And like I am treating writing the book as both a job and as a hobby. Which I'm treating it more as a job now because I'm taking so much time in it. I might as well treat it as a job. And I want to get the book as done as possible. But I am a slow writer. I've always been a slow writer. Which whenever someone says, "Oh, you need a whenever someone says, "Oh, I need a minimum of a couple thousand word for this one shot essay," I'm like, my mouth just goes agape. I'm like, how? How is that even possible? So yeah, I mean, of course, essays for college are more meaningful. Um, you can get them published as well and stuff like that. But it's like, seriously, why do you write a book just to say why the sky is blue? Why? Like to me, in my world, it's more of a because how what I like to do, despite how long my videos can take, of me just talking, but like you're supposed to be concise. You're not supposed to go on and on and on and on and on until you get an arbitrary limit. I know that's supposed to make your writing better, so you can just fill out reports all day. But no, seriously, it's like you're supposed to be concise in your writing. Give people the information they want and need, not the information that they don't need and kind of don't want. I mean, yeah, it could be my complete it could be my complete arrogance and how, or ignorance and a bit of arrogance, let's be honest, of how essays work. But no, no. I mean, my books are probably going to be short just by, as you probably can assume, they're probably going to be short. Probably. I mean, I'm going to have long chapters, but the chapters are short stories. Like you can read them independently if you want, and they're even segmented into sub chapters and even scenes in those chapters with episodes and acts, which can also be made into an episode into a TV show either an actual TV show or an online TV show like Red vs. Blue, for example, or Ruby, um, or it could be made into comic books, or it could be like or it could be made strictly into a video game. Like my ability, like the new format I came up with allows me to really, allows it to be, I basically you can do so much with it, and I made it a way so I could read it instead of just basically being these endless blocks of text for a couple thousand words, and like, oh, new chapter. I'm like, okay, does this words mean anything as new chapter? I mean, it kind of does, but to me, it doesn't really mean much. But yeah, still. Okay, so yeah, I got votes for that shot probably. We'll try Team Deathmatch. But man, for a game that got its launch messed up by sheer player mass, this is depressing. Uh, I might just upload this anyway because, like, oh, I can't really record these very much anymore. By the way, it's 10:36 p.m., so it's not terrible on a. Let me check. On a Monday, that might be a thing. Okay, so we'll take off. Oh wait, wait, hold on. Oh nope. Okay, so actually, yeah, I think I had Warzone teched only. So let's try this again. I wish you could see the player count though. Warsaw TDM. That was 10 minutes. Oh jeez. You want to drink some water? But yeah, back to filling time. I mean, promoting a work I'm working on. I mean, having a casual conversation, uh, while not cutting because I don't do that. Also, I might just make this a channel update type video or something because, I mean, we had a good conversation, so might as well, right? And also kind of like showing you what this is, because this is notable. Of course, this is not going to be the only video for today. That would be silly. I am not one of those channels. But yeah. But going back to what I was saying about my writing, like I'm getting better. I'm getting better. I love me getting better in my writing comes from YouTube, writing descriptions. Um, so yeah, but you know, and then just if you want to write a book or write anything, for example, just sit down and write it and see what happens. Um, like no limits, just write something, and that's really helpful. And learn your writing style. Learn, and if you need to make your own format, make your own format for crying out loud. Unless, of course, you need to fit into a certain system, because the reason why formats exist is so other people can read it easily. Like, for example, the reason why you would want to use a standard novel format, not something like mine, is simply so a publisher can read it quickly and understand exactly what's it's about. And if you can write perfect, perfect novel English, then you're good. You know, I just can't do that, so I'll probably be very unlikely to be picked up by a publisher, other than someone who understands, who understands, if you know what I mean. Um, someone who's willing to find me and want to publish my work, but not getting the rights. I'll partner with you, but you're not having my rights. You know, you're not taking my names and my stories. You can't do that. But anyway, we can partners, but that's about it. But regardless, that's a discussion for later on. But yeah, and then so yeah, it's gonna be very unlikely I'll get published. I could make a plain novel version, but that'll be a lot of research and stuff like that, and I wouldn't be able to really read it or check my work very easily, so it not really worth it. When I could just self-publish, and if someone wants to pick me up as a publisher, that's fine. But until then, yeah. But anyway, so like I was saying, like I'm getting better. However, it still takes like basically I write. You how much chapters? That's an improvement. That means something's loading. But yeah, so I so basically the flashback in which you go back to in which we go back to World War III, kind of. Actually, it's written interestingly. I have no idea how it would work. I don't know how another person would read it, but like my mom and like my mom, who's really the only one that's read it so far in its entirety, didn't seem to have a negative reaction to it. Which she wouldn't have a huge negative reaction, but she would. She's not my sister, who would actually tell me how I messed up. Um, like she would say if it's egregiously how I messed up. So yeah. Um, different thresholds and whatnot. But anyway, so it's basically basically it's a characters telling a story. Um, like it's my character and Luck's character who are describing, who are not describing, but who are retelling a series of events that happened 20 years ago at that point in time. No, 15 years ago. Um, but it's the first time they met, so it's pretty well in their minds, and it's also the first time that the sperm whale super heavy Ming battle tank got deployed, or a prototype was used in combat. And I won't spoil anything, but yeah, pretty much it's essentially like World War III takes place in 2025. So imagine all the technology that'll be around then. Um, as well as I assumed a couple of things for the sake of making a cool video game in the future. Just making a good sandbox, just making a good sandbox for me to play around in. Like for example, like for example, you know, like for example, the M1A3 Abrams was ready in time for World War III, or was rushed. Regardless, it doesn't matter right now. Think of it later. Um, and then they had to make like a new. Essentially, it was behind the T-14 Amatas, or the T-14 Amata main battle tank, or not really behind it. It was equals, but the Abrams, but essentially, in my way of balancing it as a video game concept, because I think of the Diverse as just one big video game waiting to happen, as a sandbox for me to play around in. Because all the Diverse is really just a sandbox for people just to play around in. It's essentially like D&D, and like the concept behind D&D. It's like that, but made into like a more modern universe, stuff like that. It's just a sandbox. Um, like Diverse is the sandbox. Their story is the main series. And it's the official main series. So yeah. But anyway, so the A3 essentially is a lot lighter because of more modern advanced composites and stuff like that, which you're actually planning for the A3 or a future main battle tank for America. Like a lighter gun, lighter armor, stuff like that. So essentially, what the A3 is, it's just the fastest version of the Abrams, while having better armor than the A2. Um, but it still has the 120 millimeter gun. It might use, like for example, a hypersonic round, but it's still the Abrams we all know and love versus frickin' T-14 Amatas, which are in limited production, but because of World War III, stuff got exploded, especially with the alliance of China and Russia. Things just got going crazy. Um, and cross pollination of technology. Like for example, since Russia doesn't have a stealth bomber yet has a good supersonic bomber, the Russian B2, I keep forgetting what it's called, the Blackjack. And China by that time will have the H20, or pretty much a version of the B2. So they're cross pollinating like for example, you'll find blackjacks with EC colors and in the Pacific Theater, and H20s bombing Europe in the Western Theater or in the European Theater and stuff like that. Um, and the whole point, like the entire like World War III, what makes it interesting is the fact that there are no neutral nations. You are either basically it's all the bad guys or kind of bad guys joining the EC. Like people who you would think join the EC would join the EC, who are evil-ish or can be evil will join the EC. Like for example, EC nations are Russia and China. They're the main heads. They're the ECs in 2040, but in 2025, and World War III will be North Korea. It would be for an example of the kindas. They would be, it would be the kindas would be the kindas. I mean the well, another one would be Iran. A kinda would be Turkey. A kinda would be Saudi Arabia. You know, because of the current politics in those countries, I would assume that they would jump ship and join EC. Because essentially what the EC promises is, oh, you can be as dictatorship as you want, you can be as aristocratic as you want, is what they're promising. And we'll leave you alone. Like, you will be the good guys if you be as dictatorly as possible. Which of course that might appeal to the Turkish politics right now, or it might they would definitely appeal to the new Saudi prince who would be a king in that timeline and stuff like that. So yeah, and then basically imagine a situation like that where people started developing heavy tanks in order to combat the masses of mediums and masses of main battle tanks, and also for reference, main battle tank in there's in the Derverse is used as a type of tank term. Like for example, a tank destroyer or an assault tank. Tank destroyer, yeah, basically like a tank destroyer. Main battle tank is just like tank destroyer. You can have a heavy tank destroyer. You can have a medium tank destroyer. You can have a super heavy tank destroyer. You can have a light tank destroyer. For example, for example, a super heavy tank destroyer would be a T-95 from America. Um, a medium tank destroyer would be, what's a good example? Would be like a Wolverine and stuff like that. Heavy tank destroyer would be something Russian. I can't really give you a name because Russian names are Russian. They're very cryptic. But anyway, or just being letters and numbers, which really bother, which really makes it hard for me to remember them, especially since I don't really pay attention. I only know what they look like in order to shoot them better. Um, but yeah. So yeah, so main battle tank is just a class of tank. Like for example, the sperm whale super heavy main battle tank is called main battle tank because a main battle tank is a universal tank. It can do practically everything. A sperm whale super heavy tank is supposed to be able to practically do everything. You know, allowing for its size, which is why you always say super heavy main battle tank. And then pure main battle tanks are those that are in the medium or heavy category. Sometimes light, but rarely. And super heavies always have the designation of super heavy because it's just nonsense otherwise. So yeah. And which like another thing a bit behind it behind the a bit of behind the scenes information bit behind the scenes information or developer commentary or something like that. I'll figure out later what to call it. But yeah. Like Green and Blue uses mixed terms. Like for example, we use metric and imperial measurements. Why use both, you might be wondering? Well, it's because neither exactly do everything. Like for example, when I'm talking height about for a human, you either say hundreds of centimeters or you say a number and another number. Um, to me, I prefer it in a number, another number, not just 100 of one number. It's a lot easier to compare heights and stuff like that instead of having in my head get out a yardstick in order to figure out what in the world's going on here. Um, which that's just in my head. And also there's the thing of like you hear about kilometer long ships in fiction, like I think that's impressive until you figure out kilometers are actually tiny compared to a mile. So like for example, Green and Blue might have a mile long ship and a kilometer long ship, and people think of the kilometer long ship as being actually reasonable or medium sized. Like for example, a Nimitz is a half a kilometer long ship, and in 2040, I don't know yet, but like for example, they like in 2040, um, Green and Blue might be deploying kilometer long ships, or even mile long ships. Or maybe that's a World War IV kind of thing, and that's coming along in 2060. Yeah, I think so. No, not 2060, 2050. Um, spoilers, but yeah, you can find that in the timeline. Um, and then there's another one which is for little measurements. Inches are good, like inches when it regards to armor makes sense if it's thick enough. If it's thin, you go for millimeters. Another interesting thing is we use inch for giant guns and millimeters for medium sized to small guns. So yeah, so we'll use NATO measurements for small arms, equivalent for a railgun, like blues millimeters for railgun, stuff like that. And the cannons on the Storm Mill are 300 millimeters. Although you can of course go inches at that point, but no. But basically they're like the biggest guns you got until you go to flat out inches. Or inches are just for tank guns, and then millimeters are for tank guns because they're smaller, and then inches are for battleships. Inch armor for battleships. Millimeters. Millimeters for. Uh, Millimeters might be still used for smaller tanks, but bigger tanks use inches at that point. You know, it's a give and take system. And then, of course, officially in Green and Blue, we have both measurements to make it easier. Although, which I should represent in the book, shouldn't I? Go by tell you both measurements because it is technically the encyclopedia. So yeah. But Green and Blue in the Derverse is the why not both faction. It is the faction in an RTS that has absolutely everything in the game because why not both? So yeah. And Green and Blue is also supposed to be just a giant contradiction, a giant walking contradiction, including the armor. Like you could, for example, if you wanted to call standard issue Green and Blue armor standard issue Green and Blue loadout, a certain name, you could call it the contradiction because you carry the gun that can penetrate your armor, and yet your armor is invincible to every single gun that everyone else uses, but your own. So yeah, it's a contradiction. It's a classic Chinese contradiction, where the guy brought a sword to a king and a shield to the king, and say this sword can penetrate all shields or can penetrate all armor, and the shield can defend against all attack or something similar to that effect. And yet that's a contradiction. That's impossible. But but the point of Green and Blue is does it have to be though? And pretty much that. So yeah, this video is just going to be. I don't know what to call it. You'll find out when it's uploaded, but it's a good conversation. So yeah, that's that. Either I'm not loading in for some odd reason, as I was hearing sounds of action, or just not many people are playing right now. Which could be down to various different factors. It's getting close to midnight, which not many people play during midnight, or a lot of people play during midnight. It depends on the game, and day of the week, etc. Like for example, it's Monday, so people might be tired from work or school and aren't playing this late, or are going to sleep early in order to be ready for work or school Tuesday. I think I have more sound effects. Maybe it's just not loading in. Actually, let me stop recording real quick. Be right back. Yeah, that didn't work. Not really didn't give time enough to work, but anyway. Anyway, so those 30 minutes of me just sitting at loading screens and just talking about their story. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm going to call sitting on loading screens talking about their story. But and the point of the timeline was pretty much now in the original in the original form of their story, we're actively calling it that is. There used to be just the Space Golden Age and there just used to be the Golden Age and the Space Golden Age. The Golden Age is oldest. That was when I was a kid, and Space Golden Age is when I started really paying attention to Star Trek, Star Wars, Halo, stuff like that. I mentioned me going those universes, stuff like that. So when I was more of a teenager, or no, when I was a later, single digit person, and so yeah. So when I was a later single digit person, and then the fall came next when I just had a series of dreams over the spring and summer of a year when I was a tween or teenager or early teenager. I'm not quite sure. Don't quite remember when it happened, to be honest. Um, yes, shocker. Yes, that can happen to me. Uh, but no. I remember the story. At least I remember the beginning and the end of it. But I don't remember the actual middle of it. But that doesn't quite matter. I mean, it was a series of dreams, so yeah. As lucid as my dreams can be sometimes, they are still dreams. They're not that lucid. And then what the early era is me explaining how the world got started in the first place. And the funny thing about the Dear Story timeline is it's very flexible. Like, it doesn't have to, like, the golden age, the peak of the golden age does not have to be 2040. I made it that way because I love 2040 as a date in science fiction. Same with 2020. The timeline does not have to start in 2020. I like it to start in 2020 because that's like the earliest future date when I was growing up. So yeah, like for example, if you're growing up in the 1960s, 2000 might be your future date. Um, for example, or you get the idea. If you're a science fiction fan, you know what your future date is. And my future date was 2040. Also, 2450 is another future date. Um, so yeah. So basically, those were like the classic future dates. And I just based the universe around that. And also based on my physical age, because Der Spline and the Diverse is the same Der Spline as the one speaking to you right now, effectively. Um, so yeah. Except, reasons on how he got to the future, but he kind of did it the hard way. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to wrap the video now. I've gone overtime and I've just been talking. So yeah. So let me know if you actually want me just to sit around and talk. I guess that's a thing I can do. A lot of YouTubers do it, and I can just talk about their story this way, just nonchalantly. Give you like an update. Oh, that'd be a good series. And like an update in their story. We'll just talk about random I just talk about their story, um, because there's always something going on. I'm writing a good paragraph a day at least. So yeah, like while I'm discovering about writing stuff like that, you know, stuff for posterity and whatnot. But anyway, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Do appreciate watching on this video, even though it's just me sitting around and talking, looking at loading screens all day. But, it's again documenting what the process of World War III was like. And, if you look up a World War III video, you might find this and like, it's just loading screens now. Okay, sure. And stuff like that. So you can be warned, stuff like that. And also, it's not like I just did nothing, or talked about nothing, but yeah. Alright, but anyway, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Do appreciate it. I already said that. Also, I'd appreciate if you were to subscribe to my Patreon. I'm doing so help fund this channel and my life to afford me doing stuff like this. And yeah, and more tactical shooters like War 3. Also, you also help afford me to eat, have internet so I can record, stuff like that. Also maybe move on my own one day. Also, and also don't forget to check out this story, the thing we've been talking about this entire time. This story, what, this story, a future in which everything has gone right. And one man single-handedly works with a team to maintain the world he has created over the last 20 years. And basically the aftermath of a not so devastating but nevertheless changing World War III. Or world-changing World War III. And yeah. And don't forget to check out the lore for their story and their story itself, which you can find in the Google Drive in the description below the Patreon and below the line in the description, halfway down the description after the playlists and stuff for this video. Alright, that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I guess, see you in